You do not need to fight for attention when your results are loud enough to speak for themselves. And you do not need to beat your competition when you are too focused building a world they will never survive in. Understand this. Victory begins in silence. Before the world applauds you. Before your name echoes through markets. Before your work becomes impossible to ignore, the real win begins where nobody is looking. It begins in the mind. It begins in discipline. It begins with a man who refuses to be ruled by external pressure and chooses instead to build himself with internal precision. You want to outplay your competition? Good. But don't start by watching them. Start by watching yourself, because the battlefield is not out there. It's in here. The habits, the focus, the choices, the integrity when no one is watching, the way you handle discomfort, the way you move when the crowd stops cheering, that is where the game is decided. And that's where you win. While your competition is studying you, you're studying the process. While they chase attention, you're refining your craft. While they guess, you prepare. While they react, you predict. You win not because you do more, but because you do what matters longer, with more clarity and without needing a spotlight to do it. Because what builds separation isn't the moment you rise, it's what you do when nothing seems to be working and you keep building anyway. Let them compete for surface wins. You're here to master the foundation. The man who owns the foundation owns the structure. The truth is, most men are stuck trying to win a game they didn't even define. They wake up and react. They move with no direction. They compete in industries they don't respect, chasing dreams they never built. And when it doesn't work, they point fingers. But not you. You've already understood the rule. Define your game or you'll play someone else's forever. You don't win by entering the ring blind. You win by designing the rules around your strengths, your standards, your systems. And once those are locked in, there's no man alive who can take from you what was built into your identity. Your systems are your weapon. And repetition is how you sharpen the blade. The competition thinks strength wins, but strength fades. Strategy doesn't. Discipline doesn't. Quiet consistency over time beats any burst of brilliance that burns out. Your competitors are still looking for their next break. You're too busy building things that don't need luck. You show up with structure. And that structure doesn't ask for motivation. It doesn't ask how you feel. It simply executes every single day. Because the man who can execute at a high level without emotion is the man who can outlast everyone. That is how you win this game. Not by flash, not by flex, but by fortress. Your time, your energy, your focus, they're not open to the public. They're locked behind discipline, secured by purpose, and deployed only toward your most precise objectives. Every action becomes a vote for your next identity. And every vote stacks, quietly, ruthlessly, until the gap is too wide for your competition to cross. And when they finally realize what happened, it's too late. Because while they watched your moves, you were building momentum. They trained for performance. You trained for permanence. So hear this truth. You don't need to be better than everyone. You need to be so specific, so strategic, so unshakably aligned with your mission that no one can even compete where you operate. Be so refined in your space that imitation becomes impossible. They can copy your content, they can mirror your steps, but they cannot replicate your process because your process was built in silence, forged in isolation, and refined in repetitions they were too impatient to stick with. That's the difference. And that difference becomes your advantage. Let's speak plainly. Your competition is too busy looking busy. They want to be seen. You want to succeed. They want recognition. You want results. They want the post. You want the progress. Because you've chosen to sacrifice what they won't. You've chosen the late nights and early mornings. You've chosen systems over distractions. You've chosen vision over validation. And because of that, the future belongs to you. Now here's what separates elite from average: pattern recognition. While others complain about outcomes, you study the input. You track. You measure. You break things apart. You optimize what works and eliminate what doesn't. They keep trying new things. You keep doing the right things until they compound. Because execution is not about variety, it's about repeatable precision. Let them change plans every quarter. You refine yours every day. Because you don't need new tactics. You need flawless consistency. You don't need more information, you need better application. You don't need more inspiration. You need deeper integration. That's how you build something permanent. And permanence is what creates legacy. Now let's talk about your emotional economy. The most dangerous player in the room is the one who doesn't flinch. You don't get rattled when the results are slow. You don't get distracted when the noise is loud. You don't get drawn into wars that don't pay. Because you've learned, not every reaction deserves your attention. The man who controls his attention controls his outcome. Let others panic. You've trained for peace under pressure. That's what makes you unshakable. Not that life is easier for you, but that your mind is calmer than the chaos around you. You don't respond to every critic. You don't engage every comment. You don't need to defend a strategy that already works. Because the results will always speak louder than the noise. You are not here to prove. You are here to build. And building takes time. So while the others rush to announce their arrival, you're still laying brick after brick after brick, quietly, methodically, with no gaps, no cracks, no breaks. Because when your foundation is deep, your rise will be untouchable. And that's what this is about. Not just winning today, but building a system so strong that winning becomes a byproduct of who you are. You don't hope to win. You expect it, because your process is too dialed in to allow anything else. You don't compete with energy. You compete with efficiency. And efficiency wins when energy dies. So keep your energy focused. Keep your moves deliberate. Keep your process so tight that your presence becomes a statement without you having to say a word. Because when a man shows up with consistency, with quiet power, with control over his emotions and a blueprint in hand, the world takes notice. Your competition will watch. They will wonder. They will try to reverse engineer what you built. But they'll fail. Because what you've built can't be copied. It was never about tactics. It was about identity. You've already discovered the truth. Success is not a single act of brilliance. It's a series of controlled, intentional, unshakable movements. Not once, but every day. The competition hopes for momentum. You manufacture it. The competition waits for opportunity. You engineer it. The competition watches the scoreboard. You own the field because you understand the man who needs external proof to feel internal power is already behind. You don't need the win to feel worthy. You move like a winner, regardless of the outcome, because your execution doesn't depend on emotion, it depends on identity. This is how you outwit anyone trying to keep up. You don't rise and fall based on reaction. You rise because your decisions are made in advance. You do not negotiate with the day, you command it. While others build emotional plans, you build execution systems. This is what separates domination from distraction. Let them be busy. Let them be loud. Let them change directions every season. You're too focused refining the process that will carry you through every season. You've already chosen structure over stress. And structure doesn't scream. It just keeps stacking results until the noise has no place left to hide. They'll say you're lucky. They'll say you had help. They'll say it was timing. But timing doesn't show up for the unprepared. You created the opening. You earned the moment. You showed up for years without applause, so that when the door opened, you were already walking through it. That's the game. Let others aim for the quick hit. You're playing infinite returns. You're not chasing immediate gratification. You're building undeniable proof. And proof compounds. Every day you show up and execute without fanfare, you're putting another brick on the wall they'll never climb. They post. You build. They react. You refine. They hope. You plan. Because that's the difference. You are not fueled by noise. You are powered by non-negotiables. And your non-negotiables, they define your pace. You don't rush to look successful. You operate like someone who already is. Because success isn't a goal. It's a byproduct. The byproduct of waking up with intention, of executing when it's boring, of pushing when no one is watching, of moving when others would rather rest. And the man who can do that without recognition builds a reputation that needs no introduction. You see, the longer you work in silence, the louder your results become. You are not here to beg for validation. You are here to make your name a signal for excellence, a signal for relentless precision, a signal that you are not to be taken lightly. Now hear this. The reason your competition loses isn't because they lack talent, it's because they lack identity under pressure. When things get hard, they pivot. When the spotlight fades, they disappear. When the results don't come fast, they abandon the process. But not you. You've trained your nervous system for slow growth. You've made friends with discomfort. You've accepted that mastery is boring. And because of that, you don't need results to show up. You just become the man that results can't ignore. That is how you outplay everyone. You stop playing their game and master yours, because their game is about noise. Yours is about depth. They play to impress. You play to improve. They chase novelty. You double down on what works. They jump from tactic to tactic. You install principles that can't be shaken. Now here's where the game becomes permanent. When your habits can't be disrupted by your mood. Because the highest level of discipline is not how hard you work when you feel good, it's how unbreakable you are when you don't. You don't skip because you're tired. You don't delay because you're uninspired. You don't retreat when the pressure hits. You lean in. You breathe. You advance. This is why your competitors can't figure you out. They keep waiting for you to fall off. They keep waiting for you to relax. They keep waiting for you to chase comfort. But you don't, because you've already made peace with the fact that comfort is the real enemy. You're not here for what's easy. You're here for what's unshakable. You've already buried your ego. You've already killed the need for applause. You've already let go of needing to look the part, because you became it. Now let's talk about attention. Your attention is a currency, and the broke man spends it everywhere. The rich man invests it with precision. This is how you build focus capital. You no longer jump from input to input. You filter your world with intention. You guard your mornings. You protect your energy. You eliminate anything that does not serve the mission. Because the man who controls his focus controls his future. Distraction is the real poverty. And most of your competition is broke. Not broke in money, broke in clarity, broke in mental discipline, broke in emotional regulation. So when they flinch, you stay still. When they get loud, you go quiet. When they flood the market, you fortify your process. Because when the wave passes, and it always does, you're the one still standing. Not because you reacted, but because you remained. You remained faithful to your system. You remained loyal to your vision. You remained unshakable in your principles. That's leadership. And true leadership is quiet. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It builds something that cannot be ignored. So here's your edge. Don't outshout the world. Outlast it. Your presence becomes your proof. Your process becomes your voice. Your standard becomes your separation. And your standard must be sacred. It must be so high, so clear, so non-negotiable that anything beneath it becomes invisible to your attention. This is how separation happens. Not in one move, but in the hundreds of tiny decisions made with precision. The decision to show up early. The decision to execute without mood. The decision to be great when average would have been good enough. These are not dramatic moments. They are invisible ones, but they build undeniable results. Results that compound into respect. Respect that turns into leverage. Leverage that makes your next move inevitable. That's how you outwit them. You stop trying to win one game, and you build a life they can't compete with. You don't win this game by being aggressive. You win it by being inevitable. You don't outpace your competition by running faster. You outlast them by removing the internal friction that slows them down. Fear, insecurity, the craving to be seen. You have eliminated all of it. You are no longer playing the game to beat others. You are playing it to become so disciplined, so efficient, so precise in your execution that the gap becomes unbridgeable. And it's already happening. While they look side to side, you move straight ahead. While they measure themselves against others, you measure against your own last performance. While they celebrate temporary wins, you quietly build permanence. That's the edge they can't copy. They don't understand how you keep showing up, how you stay locked in when no one claps, how you don't break when the pressure rises, how you say no when it would be so easy to compromise. But you understand. You've trained yourself for this. Your execution doesn't need applause, it needs alignment. You don't show up because you feel like it. You show up because your identity demands it. That is the difference. They wait for mood. You live by mandate. And mandate wins. Because the man who can hold the line the longest inherits the reward. Let me remind you, success does not go to the fastest, it goes to the most durable. The ones who stay on their mission when others get distracted. The ones who refuse the dopamine of fast validation and choose the stillness of delayed greatness. You are not rushed. You are precise. You are not chasing. You are building. You are not reacting. You are executing. And this is exactly why you are becoming untouchable. Because when the crowd runs left, you stand still. When trends shout for your attention, you choose silence. When competitors scramble for relevance, you stay married to the process. And what you're building, no one else can copy. Because it's not just what you do, it's who you are becoming. That's where they lose. They're trying to win by tactics. You win through transformation. They copy plays. You become a different person. They tweak their strategy. You evolve your identity. And when identity shifts, your entire life bends with it. Suddenly, discipline isn't hard, it's automatic. Consistency isn't a struggle, it's your default. Success isn't a surprise, it's inevitable. Now hear this. The moment you stop needing to be seen is the moment your work becomes unstoppable. Your silence is now a signal. Your absence from the noise is presence in the work. Your refusal to play for attention is your declaration that you've already won internally. Because the man who wins inside wins everywhere. You do not flinch under pressure. You do not pivot from purpose. You do not shake when the results are slow. You know where this path leads. And because you know, you don't rush. The slowest builder often creates the strongest foundation. And that foundation becomes your fortress. A fortress of focus. A fortress of systems. A fortress of habits so locked in, your competition doesn't even see the game you're playing. And by the time they realize it, it's already too late. Because you've moved ahead, not by speed, but by structure. And structure always wins. Because flash fades. But structure multiplies. While others burn out, you compound. While they chase applause, you build assets. While they lose months to noise, you move in weeks with precision. This is what happens when your habits serve your vision and not your ego. You no longer need to prove anything. Your work speaks. Your consistency speaks. Your absence from mediocrity speaks. You are not better than them. You are different from them. Different in the way you treat your time. Different in the way you guard your energy. Different in the way you approach difficulty, not as a barrier, but as a signal. A signal that you are exactly where you should be. Because easy doesn't grow you. Struggle does. And you've made peace with that. You've accepted the long road, not because it's trendy, but because it's true. And now, you no longer chase momentum. You embody it. They don't know how to beat you, because they still don't understand what drives you. They're guessing your strategy. They're copying your surface moves, but they can't decode the inner engine that drives your performance. Because you weren't built on trend. You were built on truth. On late nights when no one saw you. On early mornings when nothing paid off. On days when everything screamed quit, and you kept building anyway. This is what they can't see in your results. That behind every outcome was a decade of decisions they weren't willing to make. And that's why you're outplaying them. Not through noise, but through depth. Not through reaction, but through refinement. Not through hype, but through humility. So keep going. Don't flinch. Don't slow. Don't soften. Let them underestimate you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them think they've caught up. Because while they compete for this week, you've already built the next 10 years. And when that future arrives, you won't need to announce it. You won't need to post about it. You won't need to explain how you got there. Your work will be so undeniable that your silence will say everything. Because this game never belonged to the loud. It belonged to the relentless. And that's exactly what you've become. Unbreakable, unshakable, unstoppable. You didn't just outplay your competition, you outgrew them. And now, you're in a lane of your own, no longer competing, just leading, just building, just becoming. That was the real game all along. You've trained yourself to move without noise. You've learned to perform without permission. And now, you lead without apology. This is the final stage, not of the journey, but of the separation. The moment where effort transforms into inevitability. Where the momentum you've built becomes a machine. You don't need to hustle anymore. You operate. You don't need to seek. You attract. You don't chase greatness anymore. You embody it. Because you didn't take shortcuts. You didn't take breaks. You didn't take credit when the real credit belonged to your discipline. You took the stairs, every single step. And now you're standing somewhere very few will ever reach. You don't compete in the same marketplace as your rivals. You compete in discipline. You compete in identity. You compete in a game where you are your only opponent. Let me remind you of something powerful. When the foundation is solid, you don't worry about the storm. You've already outplayed the market by becoming a man who is unshaken by its swings. Your value isn't determined by what happens to you, it's defined by how you respond. And because your responses are trained, your path is guaranteed. This is what separates the man who tries from the man who triumphs. One needs momentum. The other is momentum. So if there is one truth to tattoo into your mind, it is this. You must become the engine, not the outcome. Because when you become the engine, the outcome is automatic. They don't understand how you're still going. They don't understand how you keep winning. They don't understand how you built so far ahead without ever looking back. But they don't need to understand, because you didn't do it for them. You did it for the man you used to be. You did it for the moments when quitting would have been easy, but growth was necessary. You did it for the mission that spoke louder than any applause ever could. This is what winning really looks like. It's not on the podium. It's in the dark when no one's watching and you still do it right. It's when you choose to keep building when no one says thank you. It's when you protect your process when no one believes in it. It's when you get so obsessed with mastery that even your smallest efforts are sharper than most people's best. That's not luck. That's identity. And identity wins when motivation dies. They don't have what you have because they didn't pay the same price. They didn't stay when it got quiet. They didn't stay when it got boring. They didn't stay when it got lonely. But you did, because you weren't building a moment. You were building a man. And now that man has become unbreakable because his self-worth isn't tied to speed, it's tied to truth. And truth doesn't flinch. Truth doesn't fade. Truth doesn't fold under pressure. So understand this, you've crossed into rare air, the place where your presence speaks before you do. The place where your name enters rooms you haven't even walked into yet. The place where your reputation is a roadmap for others. Because you refuse to compromise, you refuse to settle, and you refuse to slow down just to be understood. You weren't built for attention. You were built for impact. So how do you end this? How do you cement this legacy? You never leave the standard. That means you don't relax just because you're ahead. You don't look back to see who's watching. You don't seek applause from people still chasing their first mile while you're building your second legacy. You stay locked in. You stay consistent. You stay ruthless with your energy and generous with your work. Because the man who masters consistency masters everything. Let them think you're obsessed. Let them say you're too intense. Let them call you different. Because different is the reason you'll never be defeated. And if they're not saying those things, you're too close to the average. So step away. Step up. Step into the version of you that cannot be replaced. Because what you're doing is not just for today. It's for generations. Your discipline becomes your family's default. Your structure becomes their security. Your standard becomes the oxygen they breathe. This is bigger than you. Your work has already outlived your emotion. Your vision has already outpaced your fear. Your name is already bigger than your needs. You've outwitted them. You've outworked them. You've outlasted them. And now you outshine them without ever needing to stand in the spotlight. Because your light isn't artificial, it was earned. Every morning you showed up when it didn't matter. Every habit you practiced when no one clapped. Every sacrifice you made when it would have been easier to relax. That's what forged the glow they now admire. So take this final truth and let it anchor everything. You didn't come this far to compete. You came to dominate silently. The man you've become is not here to win the game. He is the game, the standard, the model, the reminder that greatness doesn't shout, it proves. So let the world talk. You keep building. Let them watch. You keep evolving. Let them guess your next move. You already planned it 10 steps ago because you weren't chasing trophies. You were building a life no one could steal. You've done that now. You've become unshakable. And the man who is unshakable wins forever.